Welcome to Writers on the Air, a show dedicated to all writers. My name is Linda Schell, and I'm your host this week. In the coming hour, we will hear from writers on our Writers on the Air Facebook page, and the writers who can't be with us, we're going to read for them. We are coming to you this morning live on Facebook. Our show airs Sundays at 3:04 on WKDW Radio 97.5 FM. The show also streams on WKDWradio.com. Excuse me, that's KDWradio.com. And I want to thank RJ Malloy, our station manager at the station, and our tech, Marie LaBrosse, who texts for us since we can no longer be at the radio station because of COVID. For questions or donations, please contact the radio station at 941 564 8738. That's 941 564 8738. We are a 501c-3 nonprofit community radio. And if you would like to submit your essay or poetry not more than 3 months in length, please contact Schell, the number 2 at verizon.net. And Marie has my address plain across the bottom of the screen, and she does that frequently through the show. Carol Costanga has been a regular with us, and she has been in the hospital, so she can't be with us today. And I'm going to start off with Cheryl, or excuse me, with Carol. It's called Jules and Jawls. Southwest Florida Senior Living. Nothing like it. Best in the entire U.S. of A. Evening or noon, concerts or fine dining, fun with friends. We flourish. They cater to us in Florida. There's no other way to say it. The cars even stop for us to cross in the parking lots of supermarkets and malls. It's phenomenal. Up north, it is a different story. Yes, we flourish, albeit in sequined attire, accessorized with jewels, and the not so eagerly embraced jowls. Although we look our best in our orthopedic shoes, and that we do, we look rather odd to the incoming crowd of young spectators. May I explain? One Sunday last year, I observed young servers filling our plates on Labor Day at our villa with delectable barbecued chicken and other fancy delights. We had an outing, and they were taking in the sights. We were the object of their sightseeing. I paused, noticed how curious they were and how intensely they stared. They looked on quietly, pensively, and quizzically, these young'uns, as though seeing the esteemed, aged, and mass for the first time was like seeing people from a foreign land. It was obvious to me that they were jolted, indeed shaken at the sight of us. One of us walked with a cane, one with a walker, another fiddled with her hearing aid, another shouted across the table to a friend who just dropped his hearing aid, and some of us just looked odd when we walked up to dance to the DJ's songs. Once, long, long ago, we were quick-witted, well-read, professionals in the workaday world. But people change, times change, and now we're just out of place. In fact, we look quite odd. No one cares to know what we once did or who we once were. Today, we are seen in frailty and in deficit. And kids just stepping out of their teens into their 20s really do see what may seem rather strange, as in all of us together. Well, we may look kind of funny to them, granted, but come on now, we look our best. Dripping in jewels, and a smart pantsuit, matching flats with little pink pearls. And what about our counterparts? Cool as cucumbers on ice, in Bermudas and sandals, and a dapper shirt. After all, comfort in Florida is foremost in retirement. So, what's a lumber disc or two out of whack? So, we're a little shorter, a tad chunky, tentative in our stride, and somewhat bent over, but adorned nonetheless. With the stunning tennis bracelet, while wrinkled hands tackle portable oxygen carried with composure to the Sarasota Opera House elevator that will boost us all to our seats and to the voice of Pavarotti. Because no matter what, as Dad said in his last years, circumstances may become cruel, but still, life is beautiful. Thank you, Carol. And now I want to talk to Alan Hodgson. Alan, you're our airplane pilot. And I want to ask you something that I've been wanting to ask you for a long time. I heard a rumor that you did something before you were a pilot, and I think it was something that would make you have something in common with Khrushchev. Would you tell everyone what it is?
Well, before Khrushchev, I was working for an organ builder and tuner. I used to do church and cathedral pipe organ tuning. But anyway, I went into an apprenticeship for 5 years in mine engineering and worked in a coal mine and did about 2.5 years underground in a deep shaft mine. It's a place that they should just fill them all in. That's
Really?
Yeah,
it
was.
What made you get out? What made you get out of mining and go to where you are?
A pal of mine had a couple of sisters who married GIs from Denver, and he moved over there. And a year later, I had a job in Nigeria to go to, which was installing pumps for irrigation. And suddenly they started lopping heads off over there. So I said, well, come to Denver and try it. So we came over to Denver, flew over on Pan Am to New York, and then flew United down to Denver. And a United captain got on the flight in New York and sat with us. And I talked to him about licensing for flying and stuff, and he told me a lot about it. And we landed at Denver in August. And in October, I saw an ad for TWA was hiring pilots. And this sparked off the thing again about flying. And I found a little flight school and took my private license there, and then cross country way out west through Utah and Vegas and California and back, and took Brenda along with me because I was licensed then and had my commercial license, and then an instructor, and worked for the Air Force for 12 months in flight training in Texas, and then got hired by TWA. So
and you never saw an unidentified flying object?
Almost.
Oh, really? Wow.
We were flying west in the evening, about to cross the Rockies, and an aircraft north of us going the same direction mentioned it. He said between us somewhere, and we were looking, and the controller said, I have it on radar. And he said, oh my God, it's just zoomed away off the screen. So maybe, perhaps.
Yeah. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Okay, yeah. Alan, what do you have for us? And by the way, I'd like you to read a few, then bounce it back to me, and I'll bounce it back to you.
Oh, good enough.
Okay.
Okay. There's Boyhood in memory of Terry. He was my lifelong pal. He died in 2013. All by himself with no need for a friend, with time on his hands and hours to spend, attracted by streams, small ponds or wet bogs, splashing in water, chasing minnows and frogs. A boy can be happy in mud and yet still not care about getting too wet. With a jar on a string, a quick upward swing, lands the prize in an onion bag net. He transfers the catch from the net to the jar, no inadequate feelings for aquarium bizarre. Peeping within, his eyes out of whack, the wriggler is frantically staring right back. Safely at home in a larger container swims the wriggler, his home on the kitchen sink drainer. With the lad freshly bathed, the wiggler's well fed, the yawning young man takes to his bed. But at morning's first light, refreshed overnight, in the kitchen a sight to deplore. The container unkept, the wriggler has leapt, now lies dried up on the floor. The funeral was brief, short time for his grief, just a moment to pause without fret. He's off at the run to not be outdone, to the shed for his jar and the net. That was about Terry.
Do you have another one for us?
I do. I'll tell you this one. This is, I must explain first that I'm a procrastinating painter. And when you're a new artist, you get a nice big canvas or a watercolor board, and you're intimidated about putting a brush to it. You don't want to make a mark. So I think most artists live with this. This is Sir Winston Churchill, Daybreak at Cadiz, 1920. He was a painter too. On the struggles of starting a painting. Having bought the colors, an easel and a canvas, the next step was to begin. But what a step to take. The palette gleamed with beads of color, fair and white rose the canvas. The empty brush hang poised, ready with destiny, irresolute in the air. My hand seemed arrested by a silent veto. At that moment, loud approaching sound of a motor car was heard in the drive. From this chariot there stepped swiftly, the lightly none other than the gifted wife of Sir John Lavery. Painting? But what are you hesitating about? Let me have a brush, the big one. Splash into the turpentine, wallop into the blue and the white, frantic flourishes on the palette, clean no longer, and then several large, fierce strokes and slashes of blue on the absolutely cowering canvas. Anyone could see that it did not hit back. No evil fate avenged the jaunty violence. The canvas grinned in helplessness before me. The spell was broken. The sickly inhibitions rolled away. I seized the largest brush and fell upon my victim with berserk fury. I have never felt any awe of a canvas since.
Okay.
That was...
Thank you, Alan. And
You're
with
welcome.
that, I'm going to snatch it away from you for just a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to read from Emma Feix-Alberts, who couldn't be with us today. We all know Emma. She's a barrel of fun. And the title of her poem is called Oliver Hazard Perry. He taught me that the joy of love is in the giving. His frail arms held me safely through the storms. He sang the Rock of Ages and lived the golden rule. I was the flower in his garden. The years have bent the stem and circumstances have torn the petals. But nothing could destroy the roots that my dear grandfather planted in his garden of love. Thank you, Emma. My best friend was my grandfather, and I lost him when I was 4, and I never quite got over it for years. And the next one is from our station manager, R.J. Malloy, and it's called The Healing, and it's for a lady named Doris. Confusion at first is barely visible, like beginning rain on the sidewalk. It accumulates at its own pace. Loneliness is a dark-haired woman calling a lost child. The sound is disturbing, oddly a comfort. Apathy is gray, cloudy. and in between time that fills spaces like a cheap patch on foam rubber. Anger is a fierce toothed thing, gnawing on bones from the inside out. Affection is necessary, like the air that filters sunlight. Music is the water that heals. No thing can stand before it. Let me sing to you. And again, his poem is called The Healing. So all we have to do is read RJ's poem and we'll feel a lot better. This one is from Steve Lind. It's called Streets of Lisbon. I'll meet you back at our favorite table in Lisbon for some wine. We'll have sourdough bread and cheese again and laugh about good times. We'll watch the wind kick up the past. We know now it goes fast. And all those things you take for granted that somehow never last. We'll see old friends like spies again, walking streets we used to know, turning into darkened shadows around the corners as they go. And no one will remember us, but the candles will still glow because we're the ones who tempted fate, and none will ever know. Thank you, Steve. And now I have one from Isolde Hunter. We all call her Izzy. And this is a poem for in honor of Betty White. And you know, Betty White is 99 years old. Can you imagine that? And it's called Forever Young. I keep my oldness hidden by holding my head high. That way the flesh beneath my chin is hidden from the eye. To keep my oldness hidden, I plaster on a grin. My friends just see a radiant smile. Diverting is no sin. Ironically, my oldness, I'll willingly admit. Days when distraction does succeed, they tell me I look fit. Then oldness becomes flattery. I so believe my press, and everyone envies me. I'm younger than the rest. Beloved Betty received 7 Emmy Awards, by the way. And she was also invited to the White House. That's a pretty good gig, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this one is from Mike Neville. It's called True to You. Just a thought before you let me go. I'm still not done loving you. All the pain that we have been through, my love has always been true to you. Don't let your mind take a hold, telling you stories that are untold, opening the door, the message you send, that our time has come to an end. I know your heart is on the run, looking for a safe place to hide. But what I see when I look at you, I still see there is love in your eyes. We had a love like Romeo and Juliet. I love that started before we even met. Don't let your mind take a hold, telling you stories that are untold. So you go your way, I'll go mine, and a new day will dawn. We will live our lives without each other, and life will continue on. Now, just a thought before you let me go. I'm still not done loving you. All the pain that we have been through, my love has always been true to you. That's pretty sad. That's really sad. Um, Alan, do you have something that you'd like to throw in and then bounce it back to me again?
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
This is going back to the times of the Armada and galleon days. It's called Fire. We had followed her for 3 days and nights. As she buffeted the waves, we trailed her close in her calmer wake, and finally, with all our canvas high aloft, we crept even closer. He must have felt a serving of panic, but he brought his vessel about, and the breeze slightly strengthened. Still, yard by yard, we gained on her port side, till at last we stole her wind, and as his craft slowed, he made a desperate move to turn on us. Alas, too late for him. Our starboard cannons were run forward in their ports ready loaded, with our driest powder and solid shot. Gunners stood by with lighted smouldering touch rope. Then came the jaw-stretching scream, "Fire!" Hot rope ends touched detonator reeds and in turn hurried down to the charges. Belching flame and smoke, the cannons reared and lurched back. Putrid smoke and gases choked us and streamed our eyes as we searched to see our effect. A miss. The gun was charged again, and we rolled the heavy bolt back into place. The gunner made his adjustments. We waited. Again. Fire! We strained to watch, as this time the wind had cleared our view. The shot arched out and down and struck her amidships as others now also crashed aboard. He tried to return a feeble shot or two, but none landed close as our next volley was made ready. We had her distance now, and we paid her well. Shot after shot found her hull, and some streaked high into her rigging, splintering mast, booms, and yard arms. Timber screamed and split and came tumbling down, dragging deflated sail and snaking rigging after it, smashing in heaps on the main deck. The fire had started on her gun deck and slowly crept to the powder store. The explosion was horrendous, and black bellowing smoke hurried across the swell. Now where the shot had marked her waterline, she took on water fast. As we pounded without mercy, she began to slowly turn and list to port. Their crew must be working frantically below, hopelessly trying to stop the powerful gushing water that filled their hull. The fire aboard her grew, and how her boat now disappeared lower and lower to the surface. The sea swirled and gushed aboard, and slowly groaning and complaining, rigging stretching, twanging and snapping, she accelerated as she began the long dive to the bottom. In a final instant, her Spanish flag and all disappeared below, leaving flotsam bobbing to mark her exit. All was quiet as our captain stood and saluted her. Then jeers and shouts broke forth as he yelled, "Another one for the Queen!" We cleared our decks and turned for home. That's that one. Little serious on that one.
Yeah.
Was
that what you experienced?
Oh no,
Did you experience that personally?
That was a couple of 100 years ago.
Oh, okay.
This is just a short one. My daughter has a golden lab. His name's George. Ailing George. George is not doing well. His sad amber eyes are weary. He looks deep into mine, has trouble getting up and down. Camel-like moaning, breathing labored and noisy. He lies or sits beside me as loyal golden labs do. I ask my daughter his age. 13, the answer. He is showing every bit of it. Poor old lad is at his end. I could take him there, the one final vet visit. No, she will not hear of it, though I could control emotion for his better comfort. She feels committed to hold the pets for their final journey. It is her distress that just kills me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks, Alan. I'm going to grab it back from you. I got a few here I want to read. This is from Linda, who is my co-host many times, and she's with her sister for a couple of months, so we really do miss her. Linda is an accomplished classical pianist, by the way, and this one is called Sunrise Service. Early Sunday mornings are ushered in by a chorus of gospel singing crows, chanting their exuberant hallelujahs, traveling from church branch to church branch, inviting one and all, gathering different congregations of choirs in a unification of music heard across acres and acres of sunrise services, as cornfields stand tall, singing their praises. And I sit in my back row pew with my morning java, fully enjoying the sermon. Anyone who lives in the country can certainly appreciate that. Now I'm going to read an essay that I wrote about 2 years ago. It's true. And it's entitled, What an Insurance Agent Told Larry. All the people I insured to ride motorcycles are now dead. That's what Larry told me his insurance agent had said before writing his policy. A few years later, Larry was dead. He was lucky in a way. He died of cancer, thus becoming the insurance agent's exceptional client. As for me, I rode one once when I was 15, and it was a scooter. As a farm girl, I thought it was the greatest experience. Harking back to the early 60s, I still remember how much I loved that ride. My father was not enthused. Last week, my niece and her husband, the parents of 2 young daughters, my niece in her late 30s and her husband in his early 40s, were hit when returning home on a cycle by an SUV. While we awaited news for their prospects, it didn't take long for me to calculate the dead in my life and think about Larry's insurance agent's prediction. For example, at 10, I lost my 4 H counselor. She was thrown without a helmet. The 20-something-year-old daughter of my husband's coworker was thrown against a tree without a helmet and died. I remember a minister I knew with small children who lost his life. My husband slid and was dragged by a motorcycle. The only reason he lived was because at the last minute he thought he should wear a helmet. Yesterday, I learned that my niece's husband lost both his legs, and it is not known if he'll survive. My niece lost her foot, and she still has problems with bleeding. They wore helmets. Some adventurous aficionados of motorcycling might say the moral of the story is always wear a helmet. As for me, I say, remember what Larry's insurance agent said. All the people I insured to ride motorcycles are now dead. I'll never ride a motorcycle. Yes, it is a choice.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm glad they're both alive, but what a terrible price they paid. You know, they lived through it. Okay, this one is from Scott. Always dependable, Scott, but doggone it, something personal came up today, and he couldn't be with us today. So we miss you, Scott, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. It's called The Ring is on Fire. So it begins. The day that never ends, the yellow ball tilts, causing a ring of fire. Each day falls shorter than the last. Unbearable like truth, burning like the smoke of a gun. This sauntering, yet serious solstice sears this season in the sun. But the year, it's not for the faint-hearted. Got to keep your health guarded. The ages themselves feel dark. Resist. Never take the mark. And life is one beautiful rhyme in the good old summertime. And still, we feel like the times they are a-changin'. You say you want a revolution? How about some respect? Suck it to me. We live in a tinderbox. We all carry matches. We didn't start the fire, and we've done little to put it out. Children growing up asking, begging, I just want to live. I wonder how this story ends. I know, but if I could change the world. And that's by Scott Zirkelbeck. And this one gives you something to think about, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Okay, this one's from Sheila. It's called The Beautiful City of Budapest. Sheila's always perky. I have enjoyed traveling to many distant lands, yet the one I am really longing to see is a superb small country called Hungary. To be there would mean the world to me. To wander around the streets of old Budapest, admiring the many beautiful buildings as they come into view. I'd look at all the domes and spires soaring in the air. Oh, it would be heaven if only I was there. For the city has a special magic all its own. To me, it would feel like a fairy tale come true. To watch all the city lights come on at night, I'd stand and stare full of wonder at that glorious sight. I'd stop to savor the coffee in the splendid coffee hours, where strangers to this magnificent city love to be seen. I'd visit the opulent concert halls that ring with famous voices, and to sail on the river Danube would be my wildest dream. June might be a nice month to go and visit there, to hear the sound of gypsy music in the city square, to listen with awe to Liszt music played almost everywhere. You never know, perhaps one day I'll even meet you there. Thank you very much, Sheila. Now
Very
I'm going to
nice.
ask you something, Alan. You're continental. If you're a pilot, you've been all over the world, and living in the UK, it was easy to hopscotch over Europe. What are your some of your favorite cities in Europe?
I love Athens, Greece, and
Okay.
also Lisbon, Portugal. And I've enjoyed times in Egypt too. We had a big give back to the company some years ago, and they gave us a couple of nice first class tickets in return, which my wife and younger daughter used, and I could travel on a cockpit pass. And we went down to Athens and then down to Egypt, to Cairo, and showed her the sights there, the pyramids and the Sphinx, etc. And you know, being on an airline traveler, as quite a few of your cohorts get out there and travel too. So we went to the Sphinx and saw that night there was a light show to visit. So we came back at 9 o'clock at night. It was dark. There's quite a long queue, and we joined on the end. And a few more people came along, and soon the queue was as long behind us as it was in front. And I had laughed at something my wife said. And from way back in the queue in Cairo, Egypt, this voice says, "Is that Hodgson up there?"
Oh no.
It was so funny. Yeah. So, small places.
Isn't
Yeah.
that the truth? You know, that
Yeah.
happened to us over about 40 years ago. We were in Germany and we heard this voice say, "Tommy Schell, is that you? I'd always remember your voice." And
Yes.
it was somebody he grew up with Youngstown, Ohio. And
Uh-huh.
it ended tragically. You know, he looked like $1,000,000. He was in one of those cashmere coats, and he said he was in investments. And then about 2 months later, he was picked up by the FBI. He was doing some bad
Wow.
stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think he got 20 years for whatever it was he was doing. So I'm glad he never said to my husband, "Hey, I've got a suitcase. Would you take it home?"
Well, I loved the continent too. So many times to Paris and Germany and Rome and that. But I've visited some really great places in the US too. So
Yeah. Tell me, did you ever go to Vietnam?
I did not. We did have contracts to fly military there, but no. I did fly into Berlin, which was the old airlift route, a 707 with diplomats on board. And it was, of course, very strict. It was still East Germany then. And we went in at 3,000 feet, if you can believe it, a 707, and out at 4,000 feet. I did two of those. So that was a little spooky. There was still a wall all along.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. What
I
did
say
you
it
say?
was a little spooky. There was still the Berlin Wall in place in those
Okay.
days. Yeah. So, yeah, it was interesting.
Nerve-wracking.
Not too bad, but
Not too bad.
just interesting. Who flies a 707 at 3,000 feet? Me, I guess.
Okay. Do you have another one for us, Alan?
I do.
Okay.
About 18 months ago was a national art show in the Visual Arts at Punta Gorda. I don't know if you've ever heard of potlatch, but potlatch is the northwestern tribes of the US and Canada. The indigenous peoples. They have
I didn't
this.
know that.
They have this potlatch. What it is the surrendering, either destroying or giving away their most prized possessions in a form of soul cleansing. And it still goes on today. But the winning painting down there, I'm going to show you this extraordinary painting of a little girl with devastation behind her. So if you can see that.
Oh my, yes.
It's the most wonderful painting.
Yes.
Okay, so I wrote for that and read at the show. And that was Potlatch, the painting. My writing was called Goodness of the Heart. Devastation came the night before. Not much time to prepare. Community shelter, 3 doors away, had somehow survived. Shocked children, in confusion, would be sheltering there. They would have nothing, perhaps even parents gone. More fortunate, though pained inside, soft friends her security. It was far from easy, so cherished, saved each Christmas and birthday. Now they were to be given up, comfort for others, feeling the vein of her family's long tradition of caring and giving. Well learned, now it was her turn, developing and expressing the goodness in her little heart. Gifted things can be replaced. After this tragic time, parting with these treasures would raise her spirit, set her on a true and unselfish course as she developed. Grow as one of those special people in this frazzled world, one more of those so badly needed. How she ached for the personal contact. These precious toys will be payment for that. Grateful young faces will reflect compassion and turn her anguish to peace.
Thank you very much, Alan.
That's Potlatch. Thank you.
Are you familiar with the indigenous people in Canada? Do you have connections there in some way?
No, but this stimulated a little more interest for me that this still goes on today in form, and it's a big celebration, you know. So it's in the States and in Canada. So it's a kind of a great ritual that they perform.
We can learn from other cultures. There's so much.
Absolutely, and a very ancient culture like that, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you can have at it again.
Well, there's just a quick one here. Budgeting with hope.
Okay.
Costs are going up. Higher with snowbirds coming. That's the spring. But I mean the winter. Payments, bills on the kitchen table of many. The lottery, part of our financial planning. Medications and health costs, making people ill. Unbelievable SOBs that want to steal from the people. Pre-existing conditions, part of their thieving plan. Checks not much good. Pay with magic flashy electronics. Jumbo eggs from Walmart remain a useful bargain. As are frozen turkeys a week after Thanksgiving. Need a mortgage to buy decent meat.
Isn't that the truth? You know what? Against my better judgment, I'm going to share this with you when you were talking about hospital bills. I was admitted to the hospital in April. Now, I wasn't officially admitted to the hospital. That's important for insurance purposes, but I did spend the night. And when I got my bill, now bear in mind, I had no operations. All they did was take tests and give me some IVs and stuff for the astral flutter, which I was in for. The bill was $9 $59,999.99.
Wow.
Okay, that's what they said the bill was, and it was something like 3 or 4,000 that Medicare was going to pay, and then my supplemental took care of the rest. And my question is, who picks up that slack in between? You know these bills are crazy. And then if you get down at the bottom, in Part B, it says that $99,000 figure. No, I'm paraphrasing. Wasn't the actual figure. They were just using that figure so they could process the bill.
Oh.
The real figure was something like 125,000.
Oh.
Now, please explain this. What Alice in Wonderland stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody can make heads or tails out of this stuff that you get. I feel so thankful to God that I have a good supplemental, because anything that Medicare pays, my supplemental will come in and take care of the rest. I have Plan F with United Healthcare.
Yeah.
But still, what's going on?
I don't know. It's some of the same things happening with insurances. And I was thumbing through my coverage last night for a hurricane, and they send you about 3 or 4 different files every couple of months of adjustments and changes. And you need to be a good lawyer to know what the heck your coverage is. You know, it's just crazy. Confuse the public.
Oh yes, and we're quite confused.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. I no longer feel inferior because I don't understand.
So we become writers, right?
Right. This is how we handle our stress. And that and a cat. I don't know what I'd do without the cat. Okay, I've got one from Mike. It's called A Fairy Tale Come True. Once upon a time, I had a dream. I was your king and you were my queen. I was so deeply in love with you, in the happiest fairy tale there could ever be. Then one day I saw you standing alone, holding on to your broken heart. I came along, your knight in shining armor, and gave your life a fresh new start. When I woke up, you were lying there with me, just as beautiful as could be. I'm so deeply in love with you. That's love from a fairy tale come true. You are my heart and my soul. You send my mind out of control. I'll be your king, you be my queen, in the happiest fairy tale love has ever seen. Thank you, Mike. Now, Mike has got to be in his 50s, and this sounds like something that, a very young fellow would write, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
This is from Isolde Hunter. It's called Love's River. Like an ever-flowing river, beneath its calm and constant motion, love magnifies in depth and power expanding as it joins the ocean, impulsing forward, spilling boundaries, which inadvertently erode due time. It may create new islands, while old ones carelessly corrode. Sometimes this planet's very pellets disturb love's ebb and flow of time. A tsunami might overpower, annihilating love's design. Or after scorching days of sunshine, when few of dry, cracked earth appears, the river shrinks to a mere trickle, and love evaporates in tears. Thank you, Izzy.
Wow, nice, Izzy.
Very nice. Izzy sang professionally. I don't remember now who she sang for, but some big name people. So she's had quite a wonderful life. I'm just going to throw this in. Most what we do is poetry, not too many essays, but and people writing books. But I still want to throw this out. I came across a website to you writers. If you want to learn some good information, and if you're looking for a good list of agents, go to writersservices.com. It's out of the UK. And I like it. I think it's the best website I've come across. And anyone who's trying to write a book and get published knows there's so much information out there that's erroneous and just plain baloney. And it takes a while to, separate the wheat from the chaff. Okay, here's one from Scott. It's called Versus. Who I was versus who I am versus who I want to be. How can I win? Where is my zen? What are the rules? When does the happy begin? Why do we play these games with our hearts? We torture our minds wanting peace to invade as long as our love doesn't fade. In this game of questions, pieces of our hearts we will sacrifice. In this sport for love we call life, we lose as much as we win, and if we are lucky, it will all end in a spectacular tie. Okay. Thank you very much,
Good
Scott.
Scott.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to read a poem. I wrote this 3 years ago. I don't do poems. I don't know whatever possessed me to sit down and do this. It's kind of over the top. If I offend somebody, I think Alan remembers when I read it. It was years ago. I was at a women's conference selling memberships, and this is what I sat down and did that night. Hail the hormone clatch, heed the high clicking heels, hark the clucking chicks, snakes and shrews describe a few. Happy hens are some, boobs and babes are having fun. Buttocks are widespread, in abundance as they sit. Bouffants knock some heads. Sisters to the hood are wed. Prattle, tattle some. Boobs and babes are having fun. Hail the hormone clatch. Skirts and sweaters off the rack. Oh, perfume anyone. Lipstick nestled in a bag. Nylon sag and tongues wag. Boobs and babes are having fun. Care to join me? Anyone? Okay.
Terrific. You should write more poems.
I guess
Great.
I've got to be inspired.
That's
I don't
lovely.
know what inspired me that day.
It was lovely.
Thank you. Do you have a short one there, Alan?
About a 3-minute one. Does that do it?
That seems a little long.
Okay. I'll tell a story I know.
Okay, do that.
A fellow was driving in the south one day and sailing along in his car, and a chicken ran out and ran beside him for a while. And then it accelerated and ran past him, and he drove to catch it up. And he noticed it only had that it had 3 legs. So he's seeing this chicken in front of him running and running, and then it turned into a farm. So he followed in, and out came the farmer. And the fellow said to the farmer, I'm very interested that I saw this chicken run in here, and it had 3 legs. Do you know anything about it? He said, yes, we breed them on open range, you know. He said, with 3 legs, they run fast, and we just we let them have room and space to do their thing. And they said, well, why? What's the 3 legs? He said, well, I enjoy a drumstick, and my wife Jeannie enjoys a drumstick, and little Billy enjoys a drumstick. And the gent said, oh, well, that's very interesting. How does it taste? And the farmer said, we haven't caught one yet. Silly time, huh?
Okay. Is that a joke from the UK?
I don't know where it came from. It came from a farm somewhere.
It came from a farm, that figures.
That has 3-legged chickens.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. I've got one here from Scott. It's called Euphrates. If I were a river, would you come home to me? Would you swim in my brackish waters, cool your toes on stones thrown, gathered at my floor? Will you submerge your body until it flows through my veins, like love does? But I am not a river, only a man that collects stones, thrown or forgotten. Thank you very much, Scott.
nice, Scott.
Yeah. And this is one that I read constantly, but I can't get enough of this one. It's from Steve Lynn. Hark, What light from Bishop West Towers breaks? 'Tis riders on the air, and it shimmers as it shakes. It knows how to do the boogaloo, and of course the Watusi too. 'Tis WKDW 97.5 FM, bringing it on home to you. Shakespeare never had it so good, even while taming the shrew.
The shrew.
Okay.
Very
So
good.
we're hoping, we don't know, we're hoping we're going to be back in September to Common Grounds. The seating is comfortable. If you want, you can bring your own booze. It's family friendly, but I can't promise you we'll be back in September. We're just hoping. And a lot of people haven't been able to join us because they don't have the technology at home. They don't have the computer and the microphone and the camera set up. So that's why we've been doing it like this. And
you can't. This is your 2-minute warning.
yeah.
I'm calm.
Okay. I want to ask folks if you could please give us a donation and call the radio station, because it costs a lot of money to run a nonprofit radio station. And I think today, the way the corporations are gobbling up newspapers and radio stations and TV stations, it's important to have a nonprofit. So on that happy note, I want to say this. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. And thank you, Marie. You're in the background. You've really given up a lot for us. She's our tech, and we want to say a special thanks to our station manager, RJ Malloy, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to share our talents. Thank you for listening. I don't care if you live in Timbuktu or Boise, Idaho, send me your poems to lshell2@verizon.net, and we'll fit them in on the air. We're not going to have a bunch of shows after August or after July 20th. We're going to be on a hiatus till August 12th, and Marie will be showing reruns. I just want to give you a heads up on that. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. We've had fun, haven't we?
Pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Yes, sir. Goodbye, everybody. Have a safe weekend.
Au revoir.